Welcome to the Powered by Age-Friendly City Zoomcast reality-style podcast.
We are movers and shakers, shaking up the old notion of silent, helpless, invisible seniors.
This is a new series of podcasts funded by the City of Vancouver and the 411 Senior Center Society.
As PBA AFC ambassadors, we
raise awareness,
share our original stories and poems,
inform, advocate, and involve seniors in discussing important social issues.
In short, these podcasts will help us,
you, in creating an age-friendly city for Vancouver today,
tomorrow the world.
You can hear us everywhere podcasts are heard. Okay, welcome to our official 7th month of meetings at the Age-Friendly Ambassadors. A little bit of background. In 2018, Powered by Age podcast emerged from a creative writing course at the 411 Center. And it was a collaboration between the 411 Center and Podstream Recording Studios. And they did three episodes of podcasts that were about 45 minutes each, and they were aired on October 1st of last year, making this our first anniversary. And I'm Charlotte Ferrell, the host of the program. We have had the wonderful opportunity of meeting new people, sharing our stories, sometimes having guest speakers, but we found a lot of rich stuff has come from the stories, the poems, experiences that you shared. The number one goal for the Powered by Age group was to transfer communication technology to seniors. And the second one was one that we keep bringing up from time to time, is to present things, opinions, stories, songs, whatever, that change the current negative perception of aging or older people. So in January, we started meeting at the 411 Center. That by March, the pandemic set in, and we have been using our skills and sharing our creativity. Now, this is officially the 7th month. So today, the question that we're asking the group, or asking you, are what are some ways that you challenge the history, challenge things during the shutdown? What are some of the ways that you have had more inspiration, received a given inspiration, received a given hope, received a change of perspectives about love? And I'm going to open by having each of you briefly introduce yourselves, and then we'll delve into those questions. So, Neall?
Yeah, hello. My name is Neall Ryon, and I'm a writer of poetry and short stories. And to kind of preclude the discussion is that what I've done is I rewrote my book, and I just received the manuscript, the final manuscript this morning, that I've got to go through and say, yes, all the corrections have been done, and it's ready to go to press. And so I have a book. I've been publishing this same book for 3 years anyway. And it's called From the Other Side, and it's short stories and mostly poetry. And that's what I've done in the last 7 months, is that I've edited the book, added poems, and it's ready to go onto bookshelves in bookstores. And so anyway, yes. And in the meantime, I've had adventures of hikes here and there that should be written up as short stories.
Yes, we're going to come back to some of those. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
Leslie?
Yes, I'm Lesley Hebert from New Westminster. I'm an English teacher. I teach ESL online, and I also write short stories, poetry, and I'm currently working on a travel memoir.
Okay, Don?
Don Martin. It's my first time here. Let's see. I have been in Quirky for several years. I recently co-edited our last anthology with Val Innes that's called Together We Stand, Queer Elders Speak Out. And I was a public health educator for about 25 years. And interestingly, Leslie, one of my main things I worked on was language access for non-English speakers to get public health information, which is a really big problem. I trained as a journalist and have done a lot of writing all my life, but I really never have had anything published until this book that Chris is holding up. But I've written quite a few sort of short memoir pieces, and I continue to do that. So it's been really fun being in a writers group. I've never been in a group like this before, and it's a great group. There's so many wonderful people. So thanks for letting me be here.
Well, we welcome you and look forward to sharing. Chris?
Well, for most of it, I'm just going to say ditto to Don. I live in East Van, and I'm also participant in Quirky at Britannia Community Center. And I've participated in other things at Britannia as well in the senior center. And I've been struggling for a number of years with memoir writing. And I think a bit like Don said, I've got lots of bits and pieces of things. And so this year, I'm in a new group that we're calling the Peter Pan Memoir Group because we all want to do memoir, but we're doing it in using different ways. So it could be with some cartoons, it could be with drawing, it could be just the writing, it could be with photographs. So all of us have our own sort of style of doing this. So I'm happy to be in this group and finally coming back to memoir. I don't know whether I'll ever have it finished while I'm still here on this earth, but I'm trying.
Yeah, one of the things that I've learned, I've been taking these 3 days of just amazing workshops with Adobe Max, and they were talking about collaboration because we have this challenge when we're each working individually, but what are some of your thoughts about collaborating with others?
Well, I'll go first. I think for me, one of the things that I know about myself is that I tend oftentimes to think out loud. I'm stimulated, my ideas and thoughts are really stimulated through conversation and discussion. So for me, working on my own is actually very difficult. And last year in the small group that we were in, a lot of the time that we spent together was discussing different things in our lives, which for me then enables me to actually go and do something, more personal. So for me, so that's one way of collaboration in that way. With Quirky, we've done these anthologies, and I don't know how many, but I think we must be around 6 or 7. I've kind of lost track. How many? Oh, 8.
8. Wow.
And they're all collaborative in the sense that each year we've kind of picked a theme, and different ones have written different pieces that reflect that theme. And so in the end, we put together anthologies. So it's a different form of collaboration. And Donna, you can say something about the actual book that we had published if you want. So I think for me, collaboration is very rich. I'm not a person who works alone.
Don is shaking his head.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree. I get a lot of stimulation from working collaboratively. It's a much slower process, I think, and it requires really listening carefully and not always talking when you feel like you have to, which is my problem. I tend to talk over people sometimes, so I have to really be conscious of that. But with the book that Chris is talking about, we had sort of a broad theme, and we all came at it from different angles. And there was quite a variety of different things, everything from poetry to longer stories to it's mostly memoir, but there's also drawings and cartoons and stuff like that. So I mean, I think that there's a lot you can do beyond just writing, and it's kind of fun to broaden out into recording visuals and doing little short movies and stuff like that. That's very exciting to me, Charlotte. I'm interested in that a lot too. I'd like to know more about that. So I have a long background in working in collectives and in cooperatives. And I know that so much of that work is the process of getting to know people and being able and feeling comfortable working together and understanding each other's personalities and quirks and stuff like that. So that's a lot of what collaboration is, I think. And allowing and giving people power. I think that's really important too. So collaboration is a process where everybody shares and gets to share in decision making and kind of the direction of the group or whatever.
Yeah, what do you think, Lesley?
Yeah, I'm thinking with collaboration, I mean, one of the benefits is not doing it alone. I've been involved in various groups, committees, community projects for many, many years, starting from when I had my kids in cooperative preschool many years ago. But there's always somebody to share the burden. You know, you're not 100% responsible. And you can do more together. You're more powerful together as well as, various political activist groups, demonstrate. In my life right now, as a writer, I find writing is a very lonely process. And the idea of getting together, I belong to this wonderful writers group right now, getting together, getting feedback, getting suggestions how to improve, seeing you writing through different eyes, and, giving you an opportunity to learn from that feedback and to benefit and to improve. Also politically, I'm involved in the New Westminster Council of Women. And again, that is an opportunity to join together with other women to advocate, to lobby for change, for positive change. So yeah, many, many benefits.
Yes. Bill is tapping his shoulder.
I'm protecting myself, that's why. Well, my first day in public school was grade 4. I was 10 years old. I had lived from when I was 5 years old to when I was almost 10 in a lumber camp, and I was the only. There was one other child there for most of the time that I was there. And so I never learned how to be social. And it's always frightened me to be I love being the center of attention, but that's not collaborative it's like being the center of attention. I love sharing my words, my poetry, and I got to be honest. I don't know where it comes from because on occasion it's brilliant, and it's mostly in poetry. But I've been searching for myself.
Hold on, is somebody building something?
Over 50 years.
Someone's knocking on the door.
No, that's somebody in the building. They're doing somebody renovation.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. It's another part of our closeness, the reality of our actual locations.
Yes. There's nothing I can do about the train yard, which is right next. It's 1,000 yards down below me. I'm on the 19th floor, and the SkyTrain goes by every 3 minutes. So there's nothing I can. I told them to shut it down when I do my Zoom meeting, but they ignored me.
Yeah, they probably thought there'd be a line of protesters outside the building. Get that guy.
But just to close the circle, and that is that I all my friends are dead, and I'd love to have a group that I learn from and share with, but I don't know how to go from here to there.
But you frequently share here. You taught us.
I love sharing my
give
words.
us poems and stories. So it's I think it's just a way that's evolving and being, but differently. When I was growing up in Kansas City, there's a lot of competition within education. More of the focus, particularly for me and other Black children, is that you have to do things twice as hard. You have to be twice as good. So it was feeling all of my childhood like I was in competition with this need to be better. And the platform, we did science fair projects. When I was in the 4th grade, someone came into our class and they called out names. And I was so hoping that my name would be among they were calling, because I didn't know what it was being called for, but I wanted to be in the group. And so they took us into a 5th grade class and they said that America was in competition with the Russians and that we had to have this program to beat the Sputnik program. So they were reshaping some classrooms to have kids that were more excited and advanced with science in with the next higher grade. And every year from the 4th grade until I graduated, I was always in a science fair. But our projects in grade school, we built this frog together. We made this huge paper mache frog and we painted it, and we went over to this big building, a fancy building in Kansas City, Missouri, where our projects were there among the other kids. But as we got into high school, our projects were almost like secretive. And so we built our things and then we presented it. And there was this competition whether you're going to be outstanding, second, or first place. They didn't give those things that, they didn't believe in the everybody participated type of badge that people are advocating now. You were first, second, third, or you were, also entered or something. And so now I'm thinking how much more exciting or how much greater depth we could have done with some of those projects if the person in the group that was really good with the art part, somebody that really liked the research, somebody that was good with the math, we could have gone further faster. And so this is kind of what Adobe has been exhibiting with the collaborations that occurred with them just planning how to do a 3-day virtual conference, to showing one of the first things that people do in collaboration is identify what everybody's good in. I mean, everybody's writing the book, but somebody might really be great with the kind of illustrations or things that could go through. Somebody else might be good at the other end when it comes to publicizing or doing the social media on it. But just kind of getting this thing where everybody feels like, aside from this general project, everybody is special for something that they're bringing to the table.
Mm.
And listening to presentations that were given by the people, they were so, it's like, hey, all these people on speed because everybody was so excited when it came to their piece of this overall project, whether it was showing people a way that in 5 minutes you could animate, make an animation from a story, or showing really complicated things like coloring. My nemesis, I did at senior age, went back to school and went to filmmaking. I was the oldest person. But some of my teachers, they didn't know that I was older than them, and they would say, oh, when you get to be my age, you'll see this or that. And I would just laugh, and not tell them. But again, the teams were set up to be in competition with each other. And some of the things in these very products, like the editing systems, the graphic systems, the lighting systems, all of these things, if the people were really set to work together as a team, you get greater results. And so the team that did that movie, I always forget the name, it won several Oscars, and it was a hotel. It's about a hotel. I'll think of the name. But anyhow, that team all worked together.
Not that like the Hotel Hyacinth, the one in India, is it? The world's best hotel, the very best Marigold hotel.
Yeah, well, there was, it was similar to that, but
I need to add one last thing, and that is that Lesley and I have cooperated and
That's right.
created
Yes.
a beautiful combination of poetry and Leslie's poetry and my short stories that all link up to the same topic, which was being in the lumber camp and during the war, and I'm sorry, just right after the war, and that was a beautiful piece. We really we've done it on one of your shows.
Mm-hmm.
yes. And it's in the spins. I mean, on the website, on the Powered by Age website now, it's still emerging, but it has one section that's called episodes, and the other one is called spins, listening sessions, where people could just go and they could listen to that genre, that new creation by Neall and Lesley, or they could go and would hear Chris's story. Sometimes
That was a gift, Lesley.
It worked out amazingly well. It was just seamless. Yeah.
And people, it may be a new genre, so if people hearing it might be inspired for other people to collaborate, to combine their poem with a song or a poem with a story.
Yeah, I'm just reading a poetry book right now that's actually a combination of poetry and prose, very similar to what we did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
We invented that.
Yeah. Yeah, on the topic of competition and collaboration, and I never worked well with competition, and my educational experience was completely different. There seemed to be no competition until I hit sixth form, which would be the equivalent of grades 11 and 12, I guess. And then we got a lot of pressure from the school, from the teachers at the school, because you have to do better if you want to go to university. And you have to get your grades up, and you have to, and they played students against each other, which I thought was horrible. They played me against another girl in the class we were both, I don't want to brag or anything, but I guess I was kind of gifted, but I just broke. I said, I don't even want to go to university. It's not worth it. Right. Mm-hmm. And it didn't work for me at all. Later on, sort of when I did go back to SFU, most of the courses that I took there, we worked on a lot of collaborative projects, and getting into English as a second language. Collaboration is a very important way of learning. for English second language speakers because they can work together and practice their language together. So a whole different model. And yeah, competition doesn't do it for me.
How within this particular shutdown, safe distancing, what are some ways that you have found that you've either inspired someone or been inspired?
Well, I did a lot of theater in my youth, and am still participating in various theatrical productions on Zoom now. But I have a really close old friend who's been very ill. We were both actors, and I directed him actually in a couple of different shows. And I kind of inspired him to get involved with this one group that's reading Shakespeare plays. They're just doing readings on Zoom. They're not trying to do productions or whatever. And it's been really fun to kind of be involved in that and sort of watch him get into it. But then he had this brilliant idea of doing a play on his own. He wanted to direct his own play, and he's not able to go out of his apartment at all, and he can't really even have anybody come in because he's got really, really bad lungs, and any kind of, even a cold would be really bad for him. He's been in the hospital several times just with cold viruses. But so having this ability to do theatrical productions on Zoom was like this huge light bulb went off in his brain, and he's starting to work on his second production. So I'm very excited about that. He's going to do, well, he did Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and he played the Elizabeth Taylor part himself in the he broke it into 3 acts. So there were 3 different recordings, and then there were different actors in the different acts. So it was really, it turned out really, really good. I was very impressed. So he's got a new one. He's got another one coming up. So that's been really, really fun.
Don, I've got 2 short stories that one is in my current book, and it's a trial for a soul that's about to be born, and he wants the woman that's carrying his incarnate, he wants her to have an abortion because he doesn't want to enter into a dysfunctional alcoholic family. And it's a beautiful little play of 4 characters, and I would love to see if we could do something in that regard. It's a wonderful story.
Yeah, you'll have to let me read it.
Oh, that's so exciting, because when you were saying that, I was picturing Neal's got 2 stories. He also has one, a woman in the car.
Yeah. Jane of the car.
Jane of the car. That
actually won some kind of recognition at a writing contest, and it didn't win one of the top 3. So I assume it was with a group of winners that were also Wrens.
It's interesting. One of the plays that my friend's considering is. We have a mutual friend who's a playwright, and he produced this play last summer. It all takes place in 4 cars, and the audience sits in the back seat, the actors are in the front seat, and they just do one scene, and they do it over and over and over again, but the audience changes. They move through the cars. So you start out in one car and you move on to the next. So you see the whole play ultimately, but the actors are just doing one scene. It's kind of an interesting concept.
Well,
yeah, logistically, it sounds like a bit of a nightmare, though. I don't
gotta have good timing.
Yeah, exactly.
But one of the things that's happening that they were showing that's happening is people, like you said, being an editor, and some of the people that the graphic interfaces and moving things between these cars, there's some people who shot some things that before were really difficult, but because they visioned and had to do it in a fixed location, they've been able to tell something where you could have 4 people that've got audiences in the seat, and the story moves along because people have gotten used to, these square and rectangular formats. People have gotten used to stories being brought forward in a different way. So I think that's an exciting possibility.
Well, Jane of the Car takes place, Dawn, in a drive-in movie. Now that everybody's going back to drive-in movies, and Jane becomes a character talking to herself in the car, and it's rather interesting.
Huh. Well,
all of my work tends to have some psychological aspect to it.
Yes, I think that'll be great if Don reads it. One of our, the person that is working with us on doing the recordings on Tuesday, Jesse, is a public affairs director at the radio station, but he also, in his repertoire of things, has produced some radio plays. So those were very popular at a time, and it's also another genre that's coming back where people are maybe sick of looking at the TV, but they like listening to a radio play or audio books. I'm really passionately working toward producing an audio book of affirmations that would come out at the beginning of the year. And I've invited people to send me either affirmations, or if they don't do affirmations, sets of 4 lines of positive thoughts, so that I see it. But yeah, it would be good for you all. Do you all share your process when you created your anthology? How did you share?
I'm just showing you my audio book.
Oh, wonderful. Tell us the name so
This
the
one
other
is
listeners
called
won't know.
Murder in the Afternoon.
Burger?
Murder.
Oh, Murder in the Afternoon. Oh, wow. Where can you get it?
The library.
In the audiobook section of the library?
Well, I have I download books, audiobooks from Vancouver Public Library,
Mm-hmm.
and they have all kinds of different genres, and they have fiction and nonfiction, and I mean, there's loads of them, and I mean, I've gone through at least 2 authors, reading all of the books that they've recorded.
wow.
So, I mean, I love it. It's a great resource, and it really does remind me what you were talking about with the radio plays. That I think in lots of ways, the audiobooks and also even podcasts are actually very similar to the radio plays that we used to have years gone by, but just in another format. They're not on the radio. Now they're on your laptop.
Right, or notebook. People listen to them on their phones.
Yeah.
I have, I found that I can read more books at the same time with the audiobooks. I have Audible, and I have a book that a woman has written, Warrior Goddess Meditation. She wrote as a book, and then she has Warrior Goddess training. And so I alternately listen to the 2, and then I have a book by Tony Robbins, and I have another one on crafting scenes. So the one on crafting scenes in a screenplay, I can't listen to for too long, but it's like a treat, because I know after I've listened for that for 20 minutes or so, and then I listen to music or something else, my brain excites different parts of my brain. And then there's some where people just go on and on. I just play it, but I want to go back to sleep. And I'll put it on and set the timer for 15 minutes. And wow, I've got one that just really does the trick. Because you do have to use these different elements that we have. We have a voice, you have pitch, you have background sounds that you can put in things that help keep people moving through an audiobook. What about love? You know, a lot of people haven't talked that much about love. I'm wanting and thinking even to have one of our podcasts deal with sexuality because they say 100 times a day, wash your hands, wash your hands. I noticed when people were buying out all the toilet tissue, shelves were empty of toilet tissue. The shelves of condoms were full. Like from week to week, I thought, people not buying.
Nobody wanted to get close.
It's a mystery to me, but still, you know, what in terms of sensuality, what have been your own thoughts or a transition on love during this period of safe distancing?
Well, I tell you something that I was very surprised because Michelle is a structural engineer working on a huge project and their office downtown closed, and she's been working from home for quite a while. And I was really concerned about the being in this small contained area. I mean, there's a beautiful apartment with a beautiful view, but anyway. But her and I have grown closer, more gentle, and that surprised me. I was really, really worried that we were going to be at each other's throat because we're forced to be in this place. And she works 12 hours a day, and I have my own office, and she's taken over the dining room and the living room,
and you have the closet.
And I have the closet. Yes, I'm in the closet.
Well, for us, nothing's really changed. I mean, we've both been retired. I did have the same concern that I was going to be home more and maybe we get impatient with each other. But no, I mean, life goes on, love goes on. You know, as retired people, we've actually been spending more quality time together as well, which has made things, you know, it's sort of enriched our lives a little bit, really. You know, more time in the garden, more time together. So, yeah, I don't think as a retired couple, nothing's really changed.
My experience is very different because, as you know from my story, my partner died about 4 years ago. So I'm now living alone. And certainly because of all the COVID stuff and because of my age and a couple of health issues, people kept their distance. And so one of the things that I noticed that I really miss is touch. Mm-hmm. There's no touch anymore because I did have a little bit yesterday. I met a friend for coffee and she said, come on, let's just sneak a hug, which is probably the first hug I've had in 7 months. Mm-hmm. So that I find one of the really difficult things about the COVID. And while I really enjoy the Zooming, it saves me a lot of time in the sense of if I was going to a meeting, it'd probably take me 40 minutes to get there, 40 minutes to get home, and a 2-hour meeting. So the Zooming has removed all of that, but it's also removed any physical human contact.
Yeah, and that is so important. I mean, our skin is an organ and it needs stimulation, honestly. Yeah.
So, I mean, and on top of that, the fact that I'm alone because my partner died. So, you know, that's another whole dimension, if you like, to being alone. Plus, this is the first time in my life, the very first time in my life that I have lived alone. All my life, I've been in places where there've been more than me. And this is the first time, this last year and a bit, is the first time I've ever actually lived alone and have had to adjust to living alone, which compounds the experience of this COVID stuff.
Yeah, that's true. As I look back on my life too, I've never lived alone. When I was single, I always had roommates to share the rent. When I lived in London, I lived in a hostel. I was in a room with 7 other girls. And I married fairly young, and we've been together since then. So yeah, I've never been alone. So it is an adjustment. I can understand that. Yeah. I remember what my mother went through when my father died. And she was, not only emotionally devastated, but devastated with having to deal with life alone.
Yeah. One of the things I learned from my mother after my father died was that I said to her a couple of times, don't you get really lonely being alone and living by yourself? Because you've been with my dad for almost 50 years or however long it was. And she said, when I get lonely, I go to the mall and I sit on a bench. And inevitably somebody comes and sits next to me and talks to me.
Oh.
So I thought that was, now it's a little bit more difficult now with COVID, but that was her solution to the aloneness. I mean, my mom was quite happy being alone. I'm not. But my mom was. I mean, she did a lot of gardening. It was always on her own. My dad was always inside reading something and smoking his pipe. So there's different people have different temperaments and all that stuff. So, but I thought that was very creative on her part of going to the mall.
Well, I've never been without a partner, although I've had several. But when I turned 75, I took my backpack and went to England for 9 months and enjoyed a couple of lovers in one in London and one in New York, but lived in youth hostels. But again, we're back to the thing about I'm sharing. You said you shared Lesley. You said you shared your apartment with 8 other girls. I did the same.
It was a dormitory, not an apartment.
Yeah. I lived in youth hostels, so I would have an occasional. There'd be 12 of us in a room, and some of them guys, some of them girls, and yeah. Anyway, so I don't know that I can say I've ever lived alone, and I'm concerned about Michelle because I'm several years older than her, and she's still going to have a working life for at least another 15 years, I think. But anyway. Hey, I got it. Life has been an adventure. It's that simple. It's been an adventure.
I've been having such an re-exploration of self-love. I mean, when we first had the shutdown and I couldn't go back and forth to the States, I was really sad because I've met very few people here. Between Poetic Justice and the radio station, that's where I've met the most people. When I first moved to Canada, I was living in Toronto and had friends there. But then after I had accident, lived in the States for a while and came here, my daughter moved back to Canada and came here. And I'm happy that I live with her because I've had periods of living by myself, but I don't really like living by myself because I don't have anybody to talk to. And I don't like just talking on the phone all the time. And for a while, I was happy at first to see and be able to connect with people on Zoom. But then it made me really sad, especially when I'm talking with friends from the States, because it's like, I can't get to the lady a friend that braids my hair. My braids are down. You can't sit 6 hours with somebody doing close distancing to get your hair rebraided. And so it's a lot of things that were part of my life and contact with people. I loved it. I've had to work to not be sad, but also I've been working on this poetry book, Loving Yourself, Loving. And it's got activities around exploring those things of self-love for yourself, because I realize there are times I punish myself. If I don't get something done, then it's like, okay, you can't get any this or you can't have any that. So I've been really working to break the habit of punishing myself for things. Um, and and feeling that closeness, as you said, 7 months without a hug. Well, I do every day. My daughter does acting, and when she comes home, if she didn't hug me this morning, I was outside her door, and I said, "But I didn't get a hug yesterday." and so she gave me a good hug. But but in terms of a mate or a relationship, there was someone that I was seeing that's several years younger than me. And for some reason, I'm not returning the person's calls. And I think there's something in me that feels like in the separation, maybe they found somebody else, involved with somebody else. So it's like a prevent defense for the relationship. And I'm challenging myself on, why are you doing that? You're not answering the calls. But I think it's at some point too frustrating to they reset the border again. Every month they reset it another month. It was set from the 20th of this first of this month over to the 21st of November. Things are going so crazy in the area below us. The states that we're connected to are all red. They'll probably move it to Christmas and beyond. So
I think it'll be closed at least until the end of the year.
yeah.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it'll be next year.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah. The U.S. is really in bad shape.
yeah. And that's an area of sadness, because there are things, so many things that I love. I love about both countries, and I love democracy. I love the freedoms we have, but it's very sad in some ways to see those things being just trampled upon. So
Yeah, we have friends that have invited us down to Colorado next summer, and it's like, I'm not going to commit right now. I want to wait and see what's going to happen down there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good idea.
I think we're all waiting to see what's going to happen down there, regardless of where you live and what your nationality is.
Has anybody heard Obama's speech?
I heard him last night.
Thought he's a beautiful, beautiful speaker.
Yeah. It was awesome.
He trashed Mr. Trump, but that's beside the point. It was his plea to get out and vote.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before we leave this, I just I loved everyone's points. I think these are really very touching things that you've said. I remember my Swedish grandmother, who was very religious and was very opposed to any kind of dancing or physical contact or anything like that. But when she got to be 90 years old, it seemed like everybody was hugging her all the time and kissing her and stuff. And it was funny to me. She got very used to it and really liked it. So anyway, my experience with my husband has been kind of both intensely together and apart sometimes. And he moved up here a year and a half before I did. I'm from Washington State, and he worked for the Tsleil-Waututh First Nation for a year and a half. And so during that whole time, we were both living alone, and but we have traveled around the world and spent intense time together by ourselves without speaking the language in another country or really knowing anyone. And so we can do both, I think we do okay. But I think one of the things that I've been doing lately is, in trying to write some memoir stuff, is to go back and remember old lovers and remember stories about old lovers. And I'm working on one right now, actually. So, and that's been really kind of fun and interesting. For gay men, I think a lot of times you don't really, it's not like you really ever break up.
Hmm.
You just don't see them anymore,
That's interesting. That would be a really interesting thing to either write about or explore in poetry. One of the people that was a presenter, she's a graphic designer, but she wanted to do something different. She wanted to do love letters. And her book was a love letter to the film industry about the things that need to be more compassionate and loving. But she wanted this graphic, and she wanted to have a window full of love letters. And so then she said the last thing people would want to see is just fake letters. So she put on Instagram a call out if anyone had any love letters that they didn't mind her changing the name, even the city for, but giving her permission to use them. And then within days, she got hundreds of letters. And these were some just amazing work of art of people, writing letters of frustration, letters of deep love, letters that love they never expressed to a person. So I think, when you talk about maybe people having memoir of an old love that it's gone, it just is out in the ether somewhere. I think that would be a fun thing to write.
Well, I'm surprised that people were willing to share such personal things.
Well, it's because she was surprised too. I mean, in Instagram, she wasn't paying anything for them. She said she was going to be doing this work of art, so it's a whole book. But the one thing that she said that they trusted, that she would change the name, change the city, so no one could trace it to being that story. So she got enough to do a whole book and to have this exhibition. Her visual idea for launching the book was in the bookstore. There would be shoestrings, what do you call it, clotheslines with these letters attached to them. So who knows, from your idea, we might stimulate stories that people could tell. So I'm happy that we were all able to be together today. Look forward to next week. Next week will be the day before, 2 days before the election. So we'll either be overjoyed or be still encouraging other people to get out.
So before we close, Sherlock, can I make a very brief announcement?
Yes.
Yeah. Talking about, the ways that we've been inspired during the pandemic, the idea of Zoomcasting has really connected with me, and I've been doing a lot. So our writing group, I have become the Zoom host because we've moved out of the park and into our own homes during the pandemic. So we're doing a writers group through Zoom. Also with the Council of Women, this is a really big thing for me. I'm hosting a public Zoom session with the mayor and one of the staff from the city and a housing advocate and a representative of one of the residents associations on the impact of density in the city, urban density. And, this goes to the cost of housing affordability, traffic, infrastructure, park space, a whole bunch of things. So I think it's going to be quite an exciting session. So I'll have more information on that to come. It'll be open to anybody that's interested. So I'm hoping that, people that listen to this Zoomcast may be interested in it as well. The date is going to be Tuesday, the 24th of November. It's at 7:00 in the evening. So anybody that's interested could actually email me, Lesley H, that's LESLEYH at shaw.ca.
Wait, say it again slowly.
Yeah. LESLEYH at shaw.ca. That's Lesley H at shaw.ca. And I would send them the Zoom link because I'm trying to keep tabs on how many people that will be getting. So yeah, anybody that would be interested in that would be certainly more than welcome.
Can you repeat the date again? November?
Yes, it's Tuesday, November the 24th.
Okay, thank you.
At 7 p.m. Will probably last about an hour and a half to 2 hours.
I'm going to be going away for a couple of weeks, so I probably won't be able to do these meetings at least the next two. But I'm really, this is really fun. I'm really glad I did this today, and I really enjoyed listening to everyone's perspective. So I really want to come back.
Well, we really welcome you back.
Yeah.
Look forward to hearing your stories and your insights, and maybe directing some of these plays that are emerging from our group. We'll have our own Playhouse Theater. Imagine that. Yes.
Don, I'll be in touch with you. I'll book you for a couple of weeks from now. But in the meantime, I will send you a couple stories.
Great. Okay.
I'll send you.
I think a radio play would be really cool to do in this medium, actually.
Would love to.
It's interesting. We in Quirky, we talked about doing radio plays, and it's pretty complicated. There's a lot more involved because of all the sound effects and all of that kind of stuff. So there's a lot to think about with a radio play, but it could be really great, really great.
Well, actually, I was a co-host of a poetry show on CFRO for a year, so I've got some radio experience. Minimal, but a year on radio, it was an interesting experience. So.
And now through Adobe Audition, there's a whole sound effects package. So we can explore with that medium. But I mean, I think it's going to be a great adventure we're going to be on, because all of these things, being able to collaborate, connect the dots between other groups we belong to, we can enjoy writing the next chapters of our lives.